In fact, when I was attended for the interview or admission counseling, I was rejected even to get a seat, even the last or list of the college back in Andhra Pradesh. However, there was after a couple of rounds of admissions, it was back in 1994. So I got only one seat left out, and I happened to take that last seat in the open category at college in Nagarjuna University. Currently living and working in Sydney, and I change my jobs every 1-2 years. The nature of the work I picked up is I got my own consulting firm, so where we provide the consulting services and as well as the placement services across the various telecom and banking, which are more popular in Australian market. I got a experience working for many of the multinationals, and most of the dealings we do with the multinationals as a vendors, and I prefer working on the client side, where they have the money, and they tend to hire, let's say, Accenture or a TCS or a Tech Mahindra, or if any of these companies, or a Capgemini. So we deal and we write a contract with them, and we give them a piece of work in an end-to-end architecture. I work as an enterprise architect, and I work assisting with the projects designing worth almost like $50 million and $40 to $50 million. I'm mainly specialized in designing the artificial intelligence system. So if you look in, or if you Google, and if you're a computer student, you would know what this AI means. So it's basically driven by artificial intelligence and how human thinks, and decisioning is the central hub to such systems. I'm part of the team, and especially last 4 years, helping the financial organizations here, at least 3 banks I work for, and assisting, and there's one I'm joining probably, if all goes fine, in a month, where to catch the money laundering, terrorism related finances, and fraud and narcotics, even a child abuse kind of things that we can detect through these artificial intelligence systems. As I mentioned, like I pretty much want to pour out whatever I have learned, and I want to just squeeze myself from my experience, and want to share the best that I can give it to you. Often I visit to universities to give the guest lectures every time I visit India, and normally I do every couple of years. I made sure visit at least 1 or 2 universities, and where many of them would like to hear on these matters, especially the recent one I did was one in Indore, one of the engineering college via Zoom, mainly on the financial crimes, and they want to know some of the analytics and decisioning. And also the recent one, I flew to Melbourne, which is 1.5 hour by flight, just talking to around 200 international students, and mainly predominantly Indian community. And they want to know, like, what the job market look like, and how we can enter and crack into the best careers. As I mentioned, like, you can drop your questions in the chat to Deepika, and she can pass it to me, and we have a time soon after my session. Okay, so just to dive into the education, okay? As I mentioned, if you can focus, that'd be great. So education is the key to success in career in the long run. So I'm into my career for the last 20 years. I studied my both bachelor's and master's, both in mechanical engineering, but straight into the IT. Initially started in a manufacturing kind of a ERP modules development. However, eventually moved into the more challenging areas where there's a challenging problems and interests, and especially in the financial markets. So one thing I learned, I give an example. If you look at the visit a day-to-day, if you walk into a local bank, either SBI or ICICI, any of the branch, so you would see the people there at the desk, the attenders, or maybe the clerks, like who are doing the day-to-day operations. But whereas if you go a bit inside, you would see the branch manager, maybe inside the glass room, and with the better facilities inside. So if you compare this one, the people who are paid most are the people who are in the glass room, or a branch manager. And the people who are paid less is probably the guy and who is running around and chasing or getting them a coffee or a files or whatever it is. they get less. So if you can pause and think over why the guy in the room gets paid more, why the guy who runs around paid less. And if you look at the amount of physical work they do, the guy in the room or a manager, he does less. And whereas a guy at the desk probably doing more, and he might know the more details as well, and he is paid less. So it looks kind of a paradoxical that the person who works more seem to be getting less money, and whereas a person who works less seem to be getting the more money. It is not only true in the banks over there, but across the industry. I worked in many companies here, and whether you call as a blue collar job or a white collar job or a banking or a telco or retail or which or even IT industry for that matter. And the one thing that clearly comes up, the reason why people are paid though they're doing less is because of their skill or because of their education. And education plays a very important role, so you can't neglect it. So I want to share a few more thoughts. So once I was giving a similar lecture and mainly focusing on finding a job or a careers back in Hyderabad. There's a bunch of people, over 100, and they all finished their engineering, and just like you guys who finishing or are currently who are
Hello,
still
uncle.
going through, when they came to
Uncle?
Hyderabad to look for a job, and I've happened to take a few hours time with them. So one question I asked them, how many of you think
Hello,
now or regret now
Ratnakar.
that they would have studied better in their college days? I just posed this question, guys. What do you think of if you look back in your college days that I should have done better? Maybe I should have focused on my education better. How many of you think in that way? I tell you, to my surprise, I was not that surprised, but 100% of them felt that maybe we should have done or studied better in our college, or we haven't done to our best of the ability. But whereas during the college days, if you can recollect or if you can relate to yourselves, many times we hear the comments, passing comments of the people saying, oh yeah, what you study, there are no jobs. Or maybe comments like, whatever you study is nowhere relevant to the career or a jobs. Or why don't you go and do that institute and finish up some courses, which might give you sorry, just give me one moment. I think looks like I'm getting a call. Any problem with my voice or anything, Babro?
Anna, you have to go little slow.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay,
Right.
So back in, as I was mentioning, you would hear these comments. I tell you, many of my friends or many students I hear often, they get misguided with the kind of wrong conceptions, and they get misled during the courses. This is very important. I want you to focus on. I want to take away some of those myths, and having studied just like you guys, and having finished my master's in one of the best institute, and I think even now, I think it is Indian Institute of Science is one of the best institute. Then I worked for this many years. I can tell you, there are many myths we hear in college days. So I want you to be make sure that you don't fall into the traps. As students, don't think too much into whether what you study is useful in career or not. Rather, show the excellence in what is in your hand. I've sat in many times in interview panels. And if you put yourself, the people who are recruiting there in companies like the Tatas or any of the big companies, when they come to the interviews, they ask for a percentage of marks. You often wonder, why would they bother this much? Because when you enter into that, even for a mechanical engineer, they would ask for what is your percentage, or what is your marks, or what are your credits, or how many marks did you get in the written test? If you observe, the reason they get is the amount of people are huge back in India. And the number of people, if they have like 50 jobs or 100 jobs, let's say, but they get like 10,000. And there is no easy way to filter them out from 10,000 to the, let's say, 100 or 200, because they can't interview 10,000 people. pretty much. Everyone takes, even if you take 30 minutes or 40 minutes of interview, it is impossible to interview that many people. So they need a measure where they need to filter out. So listen this carefully. What industry wants, any industry, including your own branch specific one, what industry want is this: the people who are willing to work hard. Number one. Number two, they want is the people who can relate or have a good relations with each other. These are most critical things than a talent or a marks you have. So how do you find someone is really a hardworking person? The easiest thing is I will ask them what's your credits or what's the marks you got, and then we can start taking from there and filtering it out. So though it looks like people, you might hear that, oh, you don't need marks, but don't believe them, okay? You need a communication, you need a confidence, because any job you take, you need to talk to the people. You need to relate with them. You need to be friends with them. And however good you are in your subject, that is not at all enough to perform your job unless you can relate and talk to the other people. How well you can plan and execute. So all this demonstrated in your mark list or in your credits and in your whatever the subjects you finished on. Okay, so now coming to the education and how can we excel in it, okay? So I want to take a simple pictures. So most of the time you spend in a classroom, whether you agree or not, you spend a considerable time in the classroom rather than at the room or your own hostels, or even during holidays, you might go back to your own homes, or maybe you are daily shuttling from your home. But however, the quality time you spend is in the classroom, okay? So you have the lecturer or a professor who has studied at least 3 to 4 hours to take an hour class, okay? Don't underestimate them. You may not like the professor, you may not like their teaching methods, doesn't matter, but he had put the effort to study, to refer books, whatever it is, at least 3 to 4 hours to teach you just for an hour. So if you know how to utilize the time and resources that you have in the classroom, I tell you, that is a secret you need to tackle first. Okay, make use of that time. Doesn't matter whether you like or not. Your job is to extract maximum out of the class, both from yourself and as well as from the teacher, because it was a pretty good time and fresh. You had a breakfast, or then you came to the classes and you're pretty fresh in mind. And there is someone standing there who had prepared for 3 to 4 hours to teach a 1 hour. So your job is to extract best out of your mind, yourself, as well as the teacher or professor. Remember, almost all of the internal exam questions come from what has been taught in the class. During my engineering college days, my friends used to ask me, how come you get a very good marks in internal exams? I just used to tell them whatever the teacher is teaching, because he's the one setting the paper. And if it is autonomous universities, I'm not sure if the same teacher who taught you would set the paper. But if you listen to them cautiously in the classroom, you would get some cues that what kind of questions or what kind of topics they're stressing most, and which would give you or more likely would come in the internal exams. The reason I tell you why these are very important. During my college days and even your days, I think you can do that assessment again. We had a top 8 ranks or a top 10 ranks based on the internal marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that up to 10. Then we all went to the external exams, and once the external exams finish, after adding the external marks and internal marks, again, if you rank those marks or if you rank those class students, the guy who was in the first in terms of the internal marks is still in first with the internal plus external. The second is second, third is third, fourth is fourth, fifth is fifth, and last 9 and 10th, those are the 2 people who are interchanged. 9th guy went to 10th, 10th guy to 9th. The reason I'm saying is these marks or the knowledge behind acquiring those marks would influence your external exams a lot, okay? So are you tired after listening a few minutes or or after one class, or you get distracted very easily. I'm sure these are the common things that we experience, which is fair enough. Like, how we get these kind of problems. Now, in the classroom, there are some people who only listen. Okay, so they just focus on it. That's it. They just listen like a story. What happens? Yeah, the mind loads, and after some time it gets tired. And probably I would surprise even if they cope with one class. And it's very difficult even to go to the next class, even finishing one class completely with active mind. And there are some people like this in picture, they're busy taking notes and they hardly had a time to listen. Yeah, they listen bits and pieces and they start writing down whatever they understood. While they're writing down, the teacher going on to the next topic or going into the deep into the topic. So what happens in that scenario? That's it. Only part of it comes. And because they're busy writing, they're not able to listen while they're doing that one. Maybe parts of it is gone to clouds or it disappeared. If you pick up a notes like that, a running notes or a class notes like that, and when they go home and start reading, it would look like probably a novel with every alternative page missing, or maybe full of doodles, like if they bored off the way, and if things are not getting connected, maybe they start scribbling nice pictures. It's true that you often find out. But what is the right thing to do? Okay, so this is what I want you to focus on. Some very good at it. They listen, they take notes, and they do it simultaneously. If you look at that guy in the picture, his eyes on the board and his hand is scribbling. And try to learn this talent. It is not difficult at all. It's very easy, and try practicing it. And we do many things. We are very good at multitasking in many areas of our life. And I'm sure you can master this particular skill. Okay, so in this scenario, what happens is why I would recommend you must practice this is this. Right, if you look at our mind, it is like a CPU, in a computer language, if we talk about, there's a CPU, central processing unit, and which is the runs off the speed of, let's say, 2 or 3 or what are the gigahertz of speed. And it also has a RAM, random access memory. So what CPU does is whatever you listen and whatever you feed into, and it processes, and it uses that random access memory, which is a fast, and it uses like a temporary memory, and to calculate and to process it and to digest. And finally, once it is done, it writes the result either to the display or to the storage, which is a hard disk. So if I go with that analogy, our mind is like a CPU and memory, okay? Use it for understanding, use it for asking questions, and use it for processing the other framing of the whole thing, okay? Once you process it and once you understand it, and what you need is you just need to write down in the notebook as your own words, okay? Sorry, just excuse me 1 second. I need to mute myself. Sorry, I'm just talking to my wife. Yeah, so if you look at in this one, what's happening is they're using mind to process it and to understand it, which is what it meant for. We don't store that, but when eventually you understood the concept, you don't leave it storing there because that is a temporary memory. You will forget very soon. And what we would do is we write down in our notebook, we just write down in a way that how you would explain to someone else. Many people would just copy paste from what is on the board. Sometimes even lecturer may copy paste from what is in the book. You don't need a classroom to do that. You can do that, you can buy a book. But instead, you should understand and ask the questions to the professor, maybe if you haven't clear, and write down in your note, in your language, in a way that you understand, in a way that how you would explain to someone else. And use lines, use pictures, you just put arrow marks here and there, whatever you picture yourself in mind. This is a very important bit in utilizing the time, okay? So then what do you do after that? we go and keep cleaning our memory. Why? Because we don't need to keep that in memory because I already stored in my hard disk, which is a notebook, which is very cheap. It's very easy. Then what happens is in this scenario, as you keep listening and limiting your mind only to processing, not for storing, then your capacity, in fact, you will really enjoy because you're not storing gigabytes or megabytes of information there where you can slow down the whole thing. But rather, you keep clearing it up and even your mind is consciously confident that you haven't lost anything because you have noted down in the notebook. So I was sitting recently, one of the vendor presentation, I think it was Pega, they were giving one of the presentation into the Sydney markets. Next to me, one of the personal assistant of one of the bank's executive sitting next to me and we were listening. And I was really amazed at how she was taking the notes. And she got her laptop and just keep typing. And I just start looking into the every word that guy was sharing and every question she get. And every time she looks at, they're changing a slide in the presentation, she lifts up her iPad and takes a picture. And at the end of half an hour of the lecture, I can tell you 90% of it she captured simple in that hard drive. If you ask her, probably nothing in the memory, but if you ask her even after a year, probably she can reproduce even a 90% of her lecture. I think this is what we need to learn, and not only for education, even as you go into the real world and the job. And I tell you, so far in any company, in many companies I worked, at least I worked for 10 companies. And everywhere I see some of the success people who grew up in the ladder. And I've seen one consistent habit they have, they're friendly with the people, however top they reach, number one. And number two, they always have a habit of taking running notes. So we talk 1 hour in the meeting, and I get from this guy, this manager, this notes. Yep, this is what I got, and here are my quick notes. That's it. He can catch me, and he can make me accountable even after down the line by holding that email and saying, yep, we agreed on so-and-so meeting. There's no way I can escape. So they were always successful, trust me. Okay, now you finish the classroom, you're back in your hostel, or maybe your room, or back at your home. So what are the things you need to do after going home? I tell you, you can't catch up everything that professor taught probably. And that's the best time. As soon as possible, fill those gaps in the running notes, okay? It looks like you feel like procrastinating this one. You feel like it's still there in fresh in mind. And you feel like delaying that by another day, and I can do it tomorrow. But I tell you, next day it disappears. The interesting thing, if I ask you a question, can you tell me one thing that you forgot? You can't tell. You know why? Because you forgot. You don't even know once there is such and such information, and you totally forgot. You don't even know the fact. And that is why don't trust this one. It is a mind. It can be erased, get evaporated. Keep them as much as possible. There's some people have a super memories. I appreciate that. But there's no need to keep everything here, and go back and put your understanding back into your notes, which you couldn't finish. And at the time, and I tell you, that's when you write more questions probably for the next day. Okay. Trust me, this is what I did in my engineering college. I was a topper, and I was a gate topper there, even the gate, and I got lots of free time. You know how much free time? And I used to involve in a lot of extracurricular activities. I used to spend time with the friends, and you have plenty of time to do that. You know what? There are family responsibilities probably you can look into or spend time on, making them a call, and you can use the time for building of friendships. I tell you, friendship is which comes with you, not only the credits and certificates. Okay? So give the importance in making friends while you're in the university. And we don't have at the time an Instagram or a Facebook to store someone's number, but still we had friends. Maybe you can, I used to have debates on topics like God and science, and we used to do it in English just for a fun. Yeah, that's fine. We may be totally wrong, but still we had attempted. Work on improving communication. As I was mentioning, this is one of the important things. Maybe create English speaking environment around you. It's not difficult. Why the kids here, when they go to the school, by the time they reach to the, not even a kindy, they speak a very fluent English because everyone around them is speaking English. And what about us? I know I'm not against the speaking your own mother tongue, but there's no job or there's no company. Even when I was working in Chennai, and I used to have a people when others speaking in Tamil, and they used to get frustrated. And it is not right, it's not professional. You should speak in a language that everyone understands it. Otherwise, it looks creepy that you may be talking something back on them. Okay, so create that English speaking environment around you. I used to listen Dr. Ravi Zacharias audio tapes. At that time, we don't have a mobile phone. I'm sure with a click, you can get so much material and keep on, hearing that kind of words or sentences. Or maybe talk to the friends in English. But songs or movies, my friends used to go to English movies thinking that will improve English. I'm sure it hasn't improved, at least the professional English. Okay. And next, maybe browse through the LinkedIn, not the your Facebooks and those ones. And subject-wise, when you look through LinkedIn and reading through, I have 1,500 contacts. Most of them are professionals around here. And I tell you the great ideas they pour. And there are groups, if you're interested in, let's say, artificial intelligence, or you can pose a question as a student. And I'm sure that many people there are good people there. And recently I posted in one of my comments, I don't know which subject to pick up for my daughter because she's very good at arts and whatever the job prospect. And I got at least 2,400 views and I think at least 20 responses. And they're all giving, they're from a field of expertise. And someone says, my wife has gone through this and here is it. So browse through them. Okay, so those are very useful ones. Okay, now that's what you've done in the evening. You got a plenty free time. You've done very well in the classroom. You filled up the notes. That's all you need to do. And make sure everything that you have in mind is dumped into the hard drive and make sure your notebook is clear. It is in your language, you're able to understand. Okay, that's a critical step. Now, planning for the exams. Yeah, they announce on fine day. Let's say today is September 2nd, and that's why I circled here. And assume October, let's say next month, they have internal exams. And let's assume you have if you count it, probably around 6 weeks there, around 30 days probably, and maybe 25 days, okay? Now, how do you plan? So available days are 30 days, okay? Now, 5 weeks and 6 days. Normally, I don't count 1 day a week because I want to keep it buffer. I want to leave it Sunday just for free myself. Okay. Leave 20% of time for revision. So that leaves 6 days out. So how many left? 24 days. Just follow this pattern I tell you. Okay. Assume you got 6 subjects. Yeah, based on subject and difficulty, you need to distribute that 24 days. At times, 24 may be too many. You don't need that much time. But at times, you may need more than 24, but you have to squeeze in. So hence it's very important that you plan as soon as, even if you can assume that there could be exams coming, be prepared, okay? Don't run short of the time. The success comes is everyone has to carry the load, okay? But some people try to carry 20 days worth of load in 2 days, and some people carry 20 days, some people chew in 20 days worth of it, maybe 24 days. Obviously, the one who does and distribute well is be more successful. So let's assume you start distributing the days, and for each subject, well done. And once you've done it, you just bring the plan again and start blocking the days. Okay, my first subject needs 3 days or 6 days, whatever it is. See how I'm blocking one by one? You just block it. And each block is allocated. And the last 6 days is purely for revision. One common, very, very, very common complaint I get or I hear from students is, I studied, but I don't remember. I'm sure many of you come across that. You know the reason why? Because you haven't done enough revision. It is not one revision. When I say 6 days for revision, maybe one revision for 4 days, another revision for 2 days, and third revision for 1 day. And you would just able to recollect. And why the one which took 6 days to load into your memory? Revision is a time As I was mentioning, your running notes or your, as you prepare these notes, they're like a hard disk. And you load into this memory, and as you approach into the exam, I don't mean that you should do just before, one day before exam. No, it is a revision, like a 20% of time before you start loading the disk back into the memory and where you start reproducing. Okay. Now, as you see, you get plenty of time. Okay, trust me. And even if subject one, it says 6 days and maybe 6 into 2 hours per day. And out of 24 hours, even if you go to college 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, and 2 hours on the subject, or 3 hours, still you have a 4 or 5 hours, or a decent 3 hours left out. Okay, so try to fill those time. So this is the one thing I'm recently suggesting to everyone. If you fill your days with the right things, you won't have a space for wrong things. Okay, this is my precious lesson I learned. Okay, don't keep empty. The moment you have empty, you hear those words saying, empty mind is a devil's workshop. It is true. And I've read those kind of comments, even from many scriptures, including Bible, I read those words. And if you have an empty, it is the most dangerous. That is where things will creep in. Just for your safety, make sure your calendar is full. Every hour is full. One of the engineering or management professor, he came to a classroom with a 2 empty bottle or 1 empty bottle. And he said, started filling that with the tennis balls. And once he filled up, he asked the students, is there a space inside? Because he filled to the brim. And students said, yes, full. But then he started pouring a fine grain stones in it. And they start settling down in between the gaps of those tennis balls. And then again, he asked the students, is there a gap? Is there a space inside? They all said, probably a little more. Because now they realized these guys really want to pack it. And then he took the fine sand and started pouring and filling the remaining gaps in between those little pebbles and the tennis balls or table tennis balls. And then it finally asked, is it full? Majority said yes, is when he picked up a bottle of water and started pouring it. So I don't mean you make yourself over busy. Don't leave it empty. There are few things we may overshoot, and the thing that we wanted to finish, we may not be able to finish on that day. But remember, on a following day, there's a cricket match coming, or IPL match coming, or a friend made an unexpected visit, or a family members need something. It's all genuine. But planning in this way, when you have a first 3 days on a subject one, and if you have a first day, even if you miss out, I'm sure next day, you have to do double the work because you missed the previous one. Even if you miss the following day, you have to do a triple the work. At least you know that heaviness, okay? Now, as you fill it with the curricular as well as extracurricular activities, I tell you, even your friends will do it. I got 4 close friends, and we are total 5 of them. Yeah, so 5 of them. And as I am planning my days, and they started planning theirs as well, I'm really surprised. They all settled well. One finished his master's in IIT Kharagpur, and he's working for United Nations in their IT. And another did an MS in IIC, the year after me. And another one is the head of one of the department. And another one is a scientist in DRDO. The reason I'm mentioning is your hard work will not go anywhere. So if you have a kind of a mind that, or a double mind that, oh, maybe this is not useful, just take that out. Your hard work, as I mentioned, and what comes with you is your planning, your execution, and your ability to work hard, and your communication, and building friendship. I tell you, they come all the way through your life. Some people plan this way. 6 to 7, just get up and get ready. 8:15, breakfast for 25 minutes. And like that, they break hour by hour. You should never, ever do that. If you do this kind of micro planning, I tell you, you lock yourself into a frustration. But you rather, instead of dividing the time into piece by piece, you divide your task into smaller chunks and check them into individual days. This is a very important thing. Many people fail in that. Okay, Very important, not just planning and you're happy. And let's say on day one, before go to bed, you want to look at, have I finished what I wanted to finish today? I filled my day with curricular, extracurricular activities. I made sure it's not too busy, it's not empty at all. And if you look at back, and this is the most difficult part. And when you look in the evening, probably out of 5, you tick probably 1. And you know what kind of irritation you get? You feel angry on yourself. You feel like throwing that planning. 90% they stop planning because I'm not meeting the plan anyway. That is the biggest fault. The reason you plan is to measure yourself how far you are away from where you want to be. I'll give this joke. Someone walked to the station manager in train station and he told him, station master, there's a train timetable and I hardly see any train coming on time. And why do you want the timetable? Just throw it away. Then the station master replies saying, you only know the train coming late because the timetable is there. If that is thrown out, you don't even have a point of reference to measure yourself whether we are running late or not. I tell you, however shameful it look like and however failure on your own self, don't stop. Any task you overloaded, push it to the next day. Probably you overloaded. Or probably there are distractions in life creeping in. It is like a mirror. All it shows is it gives a hint on what's wrong. And all you need is keep cleaning and keep working on it. I tell you, this is the most challenging part. Whether until now and splitting the tasks and planning it, anybody can do. If you ask the people who are joining in university, how many of you want to really do well in studies and leave the university? I'm telling you, 100%. Every student who comes to the university really want to do well, even if you're the last time guy, but not everyone does it. No one plans to be failed, but it happens. And this is the measure it gives. So this is a critical bit and how you have overcome those ones. Now, I'll just give a bit of it on the gate, and that's a common question I experience. I face it wherever I go, and I wanted to just give a bit of hint so that then I can leave it to the questions. Right. Now, so gate is nothing but preparing or planning just for an exams. You're planning exams, probably you may have a 1 month notice and you have a 6 exams. Gate, it probably 1 year and it has only 1 exam. I tell you, gate is easy. You heard me right. And you might say, how can I say it is easy? It is easy. But where the difficulty with the gate is, all the easy subject and the easy syllabus put together. And if you combine them, oh, they are very heavy. Where it's a difficulty is due to the enormous volume of the syllabus. And where you need to, the amount of things you need to remember is a huge. And that is where the tricky part is. And they are like easy if you can plan very well. So I would strongly recommend, if you're preparing for GATE, it must start a year before, okay? If you're writing GATE in a 4th year, and it should be 3rd year when you finish it. You got the holidays, you must use that holidays. Everyone goes home, relax, come back for year 4 or a 4th year in engineering, and I'm sure, and you're already behind. You must use those holidays. And what are you preparing 1 year before? Even if you memorize something in your memory, I tell you, all gone. This is RAM, okay? And what you need to prepare all this year, plan very well for these subjects and drop some of the syllabus. I was mechanical engineering. And when I looked into those papers, at least 97% was the problems. Even there was the questions looked like a theory, but they were outcomes of the either problems, either it is a proportional or inversely proportional, or what's the factor, and this kind of questions. Then I thought, like, I'm sure I can drop 35% of subjects which are more of a theory. Either you talk about production processing or material science, or maybe pick up the chapters where it has a problem. So you need to offload in that way, and the remaining start putting there. And I tell you how I did. 1 year preparation, including the holidays. All these days I prepared 70 pages of important notes, not just running notes. Even from there, the cream of the formulas or whatever it is, that strategies, those important points. And when you look at that point, I can recollect everything that is behind it. How many times I did the revision? 6 revisions. Very first revision, it took 6 weeks. Second revision, it took 3 weeks. And third revision, fourth revision, fifth revision. On the day of the exam morning, I took the whole of the GATE syllabus for mechanical engineering revision in 30 minutes. Why it took only 30 minutes? Because I was able to recollect pretty quickly. And I felt that's the best time. And I went to exam without talking to anyone. I spent time and I got a pretty good mark. Now, I told all sweet and rosy things. It looks easy. There are biggest enemies. What are the biggest enemies? You will 100% face distractions, including probably your past, probably present bad habits, or maybe decisions, or things that you watched and filled in your memory. Maybe lack of focus or a lack of peace due to various personal issues, or maybe family problem or financial issues. These are genuine. Maybe love failures, maybe lack of motivation or a direction or a guidance, etc. Whatever it is. I tell you, these are the biggest enemies that topple you right when you're planning to execute the plan, whatever you plan. So thank you so much. I'm a bit overshot on your time, but however, I'm happy to hang around and you can post the questions. So you can keep in touch with me. That's my personal email ID, or you can connect on the LinkedIn, Ratnakar K, or you can Google my name and you would find my LinkedIn profile would come up and you can send an invite. So thank you so much. I really appreciate for organizing and for giving me this time. Over to you.
Uncle, one person has asked a question that how much time does it take to prepare for GATE, but you have already answered that question.
Yeah, so what I answered is still true. When I say 1 year, it is not a fully dedicated 1 year because you need to finish the 4th year as well. So you need to probably one of the semester exams, so one of the internal exams, probably you may need to skip, probably third one or fourth one, the third one. So you need to manage. So you may not be able to fully focus on 4th year, but however, if you plan very well, you should be able to manage both.
Uncle, I have a question. How did you excel in studies so much, like as you mentioned, from the last seat in an engineering college to the first seat in IASC? Well, you also had your personal struggles, as you have mentioned. How did you come over your personal enemies?
Okay, so thanks for asking that question. I think this is the one question I often face it. Very often people ask me as well. Okay, if you can give me a bit of, ear to me, and I want to share my life because all this time I haven't talked about it. And where I want to share is I'm basically from Andhra Pradesh. I born and brought up there. And when I went to my engineering admission, as I said, like I was not a great student, I gave in the admission procedure, my rank didn't get a seat. There was a second counseling, haven't got yet. And third and fourth, third and the last, there was only one seat and I was offered. Then I went and joined the college. By the time I reached, they finished first internal exams and 30% of the syllabus completed. And you can imagine I was not that great and getting into a first year of engineering where 1/3 of the syllabus is already finished. And I used to try my best. So prior to that, I finished my diploma and I had a lot of friends and many bad habits as well. And I used to watch all sorts of movies, including the worst, and I don't want to describe, but all sorts of things even those days. And my mind is full of those kind of things. That was one of the distractions I used to have. And when I joined for my engineering, I used to sit close to a couple of classmates. Maybe I would say I won't call them worst, but they are treated as a worst of the world bunch of the class. And they both become my close friend, knowingly or unknowingly. Um, Even when the world state banned the liquor, these two guys go to travel to next neighboring state and have a just for a liquor and come back. You know, that kind of people, but they're cool guys, okay? I'm not supporting what they did, but I used to be with them. They used to take me to the pubs back in Vijayawada, and I lived life like this. But however, when I come and stay alone in my room where I was studying, I used to feel bad. Like, you know, my parents were, my father is a farmer, and he works hard to send that little money that I need for college fees as well as the my staying. And I used to feel so bad that why am I doing this? Why am I not justifying the thing, you know, what my parents intended to do? And they couldn't give education to my sisters, but they gave it to me. And that really want to really improve myself. I tried, even if I try sitting in the first bench in the classroom, because memory is full of all sorts of rubbish, nothing could go inside. That was a struggle personally, I had it. Then I want to take one by one out and become a better person. It's 1994, month of June. And I used to watch all sorts of movies, as I said, weekly, one or two. And I told my friends, say, I'm not coming. And slowly want to reduce monthly, maybe 6 to 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like that. In 6 months, I had cut down by 1995 January. And then I thought, Ratnakar, you're a good person now. You should be able to study very well because you stopped. And when I looked in, what I observed is this interesting thing. Though I tied my feet myself, not going towards wasting time or movies or whatever is distracting me, but the desire I have inside is still growing up. You know, I was trying to compress myself or press myself down, but the desire inside I can't control. That's when one of my classmates said, there was a meeting, because my family is a Hindu family, okay? He said, like, there is a meeting here. It's a meeting, but it's a professor from a Loyola College coming and preaching. He said, like, if he's a pastor, probably I wouldn't have gone. Okay, chemistry professor, yeah, I want to go and listen. And very first line he mentioned was, that was a February 4th, 1995, I remember like my birthday. And he mentioned these words, can man come out of the bad habits? Can man come out of the bad habits? That was exactly spot on what I was struggling to. Yeah, I couldn't come out, I can tie my feet. And then he quoted, he was mentioning one of the words, I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. He read these words from Bible. I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing it. And I tell you, it was really spot on. And that was a struggle I had. I was eagerly listening on what he's going to give as a solution. Then he quoted these words, the words of Jesus. What is impossible with man is possible with God. It's impossible with man, but possible with God. I made a first time, a sincere sitting, and I prayed. I don't know who the God is. My parents gave me birth, and they haven't made me. And I said, like, I only spoiled myself. God, if you're the one who made me, and can you clean? All I want is give me that clear conscience. I tell you, friends, like the deep desire I have towards distraction and anything wrong, I tell you, that disappear. It doesn't mean I don't watch movie or anything. If I want, I can go. But one thing is, it's not driving. Rather, I'm making my own choice in picking up what is right and what is wrong. As I was mentioning you, planning on a paper is the easiest part. When you start executing it, there are many things in life you can't control, especially the thoughts, maybe other friends, maybe other mood swinging this to that, maybe not able to understand, whatever it is. I tell you, the peace that I have, I was really happy. You know how much happy I was, I would say, I used to have tears of joy. You know, I used to get tears with so much happiness. I don't know where that comes. Maybe if if he is the maker, I'm sure he can make it possible. That's my experience. And when I finished my exams, end of first year, and I got 6 subjects out of 8 subjects, I got a class top. my friends used to ask me, "Are you're not even top 10. You came after 1/3 of syllabus finish. How come? Second year I got a class first." Then I invited all my friends, my juniors. I think Baburas are there as well, and they came. I said, like, I invited the same professor. Just tell them what you told me. And there's nothing I get by sharing, but I shared this good news. Even my friends, as I mentioned, 4 of them who did very well in their studies, they knew me very well. They knew my past life, and they knew how I improved. They even can testify. And finally, I started preparing for GATE. Then I got into ISC. And career, I never had any problem. And one after another, it's just coming through. I tell you, this is my story of picking up a last seat in Andhra in a private college to a best institute and a top seat in India. And that was a real turn in my life. Recently I was talking to who visited our home. He's the head of TCS here in Australia. His son and my son goes to the same school. As I was sharing this experience, he said, like, I think you have stars lined up around that time, everything working, stars and planets. I said, see, I don't know about stars and planets, but one thing I prayed, Jesus, if you're the God, change me. And that changed me. That's my short testimony, which helped me and backed me in my success in my education. So I hope it's clear. Thank you so much for asking. Any more questions? You can post on chat. Sorry, go ahead.
There is one question, Uncle, that says, is it really necessary for a mechanical engineer to learn a programming language? And which programming language is best for us to learn for a better job opportunity?
Okay, so it's a good question. And coming from similar background, I can help. Very first thing you need to be clear is to get a better job opportunities. Better means for different people, different things. Okay, so during my days, only better is whatever gives them money to be able to survive. I think slowly that culture has changed. Some people, they really want to do whatever they study, they want to use it in their job, maybe in the mechanical industry or in automating or whatever it is. Okay, fine. Now, there are good jobs in every field, but the nature of jobs are different. If you want to move to IT side, yeah, obviously you need a program. Even if you want to go to mechanical side, I tell you having a programming is an advantage. The reason I tell you, when you go into the industry, you will see 20, 30, 40 years of experienced people. And you are pretty much joined like a fresher. You have nothing to grow, but one thing they don't have and you have is the programming skill that if you can learn outside, okay? And for example, your CNC or your artificial intelligence. And also try to remember what's happening with the market. Back here in Australia, I can clearly tell all the manufacturing has moved to China because the daily labor rate is so much higher, maybe probably 30, 40 times higher than China. And obviously the manufacturing industry moved. So you should keep an eye on the job that you're aspiring. Is it in line with the economy, how it is moving? So we don't have in Australia, let's say NASA, a space research. But there's no point in me dreaming a NASA or a aeronautics job when we don't have a such thing. So similarly, you be prepared. And if you really want to do mechanical engineering related jobs, having a programming, it really helps. So the programming is like there are mechanical softwares, either you take AutoCAD for designing and CATIA. And one field I would strongly recommend people want to take is the robotics. And robotics have many forms. It has a mixed disciplines. I don't know if you heard a department called mechatronics. Back in ISC when I was studying, it was freshly started, hardly anyone knew, but now that's becoming famous. But again, I want to warn you, don't go too advanced because it may not come in your lifetime. So by the time you go into the market, what is in demand is what you should look for. Okay. I have some questions someone posted here. How do we fix our focus? I mean, how do we change from scattered focus to directed focus? It's a good question. My take on this is this way. If you're not able to focus on education, probably I would think your focus is elsewhere. Now, there are two ways you can tackle it, and you can do both as well. One, how can you avoid getting focus into other one? Maybe you haven't challenged yourself in education. Maybe you haven't filled your day with enough of things related to the education. I tell you, do education very well, it will pay you. Okay. If I have an opportunity to study again, one thing I would repeat is I will try my best to get the best grades possible. And I will use my college time to improve my communication. And third thing I would do is I will make as many friends as possible. These are three things I would strongly recommend. I would strongly recommend you to, I would repeat myself. Okay. The reason is once you move out of college, I tell you it's very difficult. You won't have that focus at all. And if you don't have focus now, forget having your focus when you move to a city to get a job, where you have to look for your own accommodation and your own food and going for interviews, and you don't know where the jobs are. And after marriage, totally forget, because you have an empty number of other things need to be focused. So my suggestion is, yeah, bend yourself and focus. Anything that distracting, I would throw in the rubbish bin. And if you have guts to do that, I'm sure with the help of God, you can do it. So this is where I would test for myself is wherever I'm not able to. As I read, not only this is a struggle to everyone. The good I want to do, I'm not able to do. But the evil or bad I don't want to do, I end up doing it. It is a struggle for every human being because that's the nature we have. And only thing we can do is with the help, I feel, with the God help. And I don't mean to say without God, you can't study. There are people even don't believe in God. They studied well. I'm not denying on that. But if you need a help, here is the one avenue that you can seek for it. There's a question here. In front of me, I have many choices and like PhD, pharma, business, teaching, DRDO, government job, but literally confused. And I completed MSc chemistry. Yeah, so these are the dilemmas that you would go through. And in fact, I feel life is putting you through these challenges that in future you have to make many more decisions like this. And one thing, if I want to master it as a skill, I would try mastering decision-making skill. My last role in one of the big bank here, who does the 40% of the banking across the Australia is my role was a senior decisioning architect. So robotics are in artificial intelligence, and one of the important features is how do they make a decision? They have to make decision themselves. Machines have to make decision themselves. And when a call comes, and which product they pick out of 1,000 products and give it to him. And how, if someone chatting on chatbot, and how are we going to respond to it? So these are decisions I would suggest we had to go through, okay? Number one, don't feel that you're alone, that you're going through. Number two is I would talk to the people are a kind of jobs in each of these fields, okay? Most of the time we imagine the job is something like this, but the reality is different, okay? Here you mentioned either government job or a DRDO job or a teaching job or business. I would strongly recommend keep talking to the people. I wanted to PhD soon after my master's in ISC. My professor, Dr. Dibakar Sen, he wanted me to do as well. He gave me offer. And then as we talking more and more, and we talked about the topic that we want to, because my master's thesis was published as well in one of the, so that had he wanted to really keep me in the modular kinematics area. And when we get into the details and discussion, you said it may take 5 years and 4 years, and we started going through the detail. The moment I heard 4 to 5 years is when I made my mind, like, I didn't want to give that age at the age of, I think, 24 at the time, to up to 30 almost, or 29, to IAC to do my PhD. That was my decision. So this only came out as I talked to the people. So I would strongly recommend, you have many things here. They're completely different. I think if you talk to one teaching, one DRDO scientist, and any government job, and starting a business, I tell you can knock them one by one. So I won't give you a decision for you, but you have opportunities. One thing, if you try your best, I'm sure there are opportunities. So don't be, think that you lost. There are opportunities. Only thing is you need to choose one, focus, and excel. Any other question?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I am currently doing my final year mechanical engineering. So other from the designing part, we have any other, actually everyone's saying like design, everything, but other than like manufacturing or production, we have any other kind of new stuffs or market to implement or to learn from our side, want to learn.
Yeah. So I think if I get your question right, so you want to know what are the different categories or a kind of jobs for a mechanical engineers? And everyone talks, design. Is there something else, to aspire? So if you look in your master's, probably some of the specialization titles, they would give a bit of clue on what kind of fields there are. So design is one of the prominent one. The reason being, they don't need to sit in the shop floor. They rather sit in a design room where they would do more of mathematics and equations and that sort of thing, or probably a bit of modeling and programming. That was the intention many would like to go, and I did the similar thing back in my master's. There are manufacturing, there are CNC related programming, there are robotics. Where I have seen a lot of demand coming nowadays is interdisciplinary skills. There's a people expert in mechanical, there's experts in electronics or whatever, or computers. But if you overwatch 2 or 3 of them, they hardly find people who knows a couple of them here and there. So if I were you, I don't mind doing a master's in let's say, a different one. But again, back on your job, whether you're planning to do masters or not, but once you get into the industry, it is very easy to move from one area to another area. Just because you've done design doesn't mean you're stuck in design, or just you haven't done in design doesn't mean you've gone far away. So once you get into the job, it's easy to move in a couple of years or 2-3 years. So, but getting into the right industry is what you should aspire for. So I wouldn't too bothered on what kind of job. So look at the mechanical engineers, where all they do. I mean, apart from the government and administration related jobs, you go into the DRDO, ISRO, and all this, they need a mechanical engineering up there who work along with the electronics and computer professionals. So take any of the robotics, for example, they need some mechanical engineers behind it. So there's work, but obviously they need people who are more expertise into each of the fields, and if possible, a bit of interdisciplinary as well. Hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
You have mentioned, you have said that to divide your time, not to divide your time, but divide your task.
Yeah.
Now, how would you, can you give us an example or a suggestion, since we are students, how to divide our task on a normal day?
Okay.
I mean, every one of us, what we do is we divide the time, and yeah, just like you've shown, divide our time. But can you give us an alternate way for that?
Yeah. So if you look here, you have seen that slide, okay? What did we do here? So we have 24 days of time, okay? I didn't split the day, but rather 24 days, the tasks are, I have a 6 subjects, but you may have more tasks, okay? I'm just giving an example here. You may have a 6 subjects and you may have a, let's say, learning a music or a sports or maybe some of the extracurricular activities or maybe family commitments you have it, okay? So you want to set yourself saying, I need to finish this task. These are the list of to-dos, okay? These are 5 things I need to finish by evening, okay? Put it that way. Rather than saying by 9 I want to finish this, by 2 to 3 I want to do this, 3 to 4 I want to do this, 4 to 5 I want to do this, because there are unexpected things would happen. You need enough room to absorb any unexpected commitments to come, okay? So that's why splitting time per hour, it is very, very unhelpful. At times you may get up late, but that won't demolish all your plan, because what it means is you have to sleep 1 hour late, or probably you have to pinch 1 hour during the lunch hour or somewhere to compensate it. Or maybe lucky if the task that you plan, which you assume would take 3 hours, may take only 1 hour. So here you go. So divide the work and plug them into the days. And here, if you look in this example, I have a 3 days time to finish my, let's say, one of the subject. Yeah, first day, second day, third day. As long as I tick off by end of 5th day, I'm good. But if you're wise, you try to tick off. So on 4th, you have a cricket match, let's say. You need to watch, or you need to do something. Or a 5th, you have a family function. If you're wise, you would knock all those 3 days work in a 3rd itself. So you plan yourself, and you have a control in your hands. You're not locking yourself in and getting frustrated, apart from not able to finish the task that you want to do, but you're not able to finish within the time as well because you made into a small pieces. Okay, so I hope I answered your question.
Uncle, there's one more question in the,
Yeah.
that says, what path you follow to be in abroad and inside of present situation and couple years ahead? Is it better to go abroad for education or job?
Okay. I don't know about US. I was there for some time, working for some company there. Coming to abroad or not. So let's put down what is difference between abroad. Keep the pandemic away. Okay. You want to, obviously we come to abroad for something. I tell you what that thing is, because I worked 6-7 years back in India and 15 years here. The work-wise, I find it, I could balance work-life a bit more better than back in India. Means I can start at 9, finish by 5 or 6 max. 6 is very rare, but 5 o'clock. 15 years, I only came late, probably not even 15 times, not even 5-6 times. Okay. And even those times when I came late, my project manager was very upset and gave me a flower bouquet to give it to my wife and $1,000 voucher to take her for a holiday, because then your family would be upset. So I found it, that was the one culture. That was one difference. Second thing is on career wise. I really find it hard. Our Indian way of working, and we have these divisions. Either they look at the people like a color or a north and the south and all sorts of these things. I tell you here, absolutely nothing. And people think that there's racism. No, at least I haven't experienced 15 years living, because in the room where we have a meetings, there's at least out of 15, let's say 10 people they have in a meeting. So at least 5-6 of them Indians, and 4 or 5 of them are Chinese or a different Asian countries. So we are dominating in terms of the technology space, in terms of the any services industry. So where there are certain jobs where like a businesses and management jobs is where we are not into, and we are not that skilled to anyway, so to get into that area. So I'm not too bothered in that sense. So I find it more peaceful because hardly any politics. Maybe as you go up in the ladder, probably you might find, but not rampant like what's there in India. But certainly we miss our families, and I really miss as soon as I get down in Hyderabad and breathing that smell of the air itself is I really enjoy. That's one thing. Friends and families, they miss it. So now, coming to abroad, if you want to come, I would strongly recommend come with a job instead of a student, at least in Australia. I know the students, they do well. They do some part-time jobs, but they always have this uncertainty and doing courses and trying to get a permanent residency. They try all that, but I find it like if you can get an experience of 3-4 years up there, and if that gives you permanent residency, I would strongly recommend. If you have a permanent residency, getting a job here is very easy. You can settle down very easy. And also I would recommend from family perspective, before your kids grow up, like they go into school age or I think you get it a bit more difficult as they grow up. So you better, if you want to come, finish early, because you have a bit more capacity to adapt to the new culture or a new place. And in case if you have to live temporarily elsewhere with the friends, it's more easier when you're not married or without a children. So these are my couple of suggestions. So any other?
Uncle, there is one more question. How can a CSC student can get into DRDO?
Wow. So here is someone like a very particular, he wants to get into DRDO. I don't know why, but yeah, I got friends who were there. When I was doing masters in ISC, in first semester, we got DRDO job. Many didn't pick up because the time trend was to wait until the final semester and to look for a better jobs than DRDO. But whereas one of my friend, he picked up that job. See, look at what is there. What is a DRDO does? It's a defense research. Look at the equipment that they do and how much computer programming they need inside of it. There are many things that are automated, like let's say guided missile. How is it guided? I'm sure in the chips there's a little programs they write it. It is not extensive that you would need many computer science engineers, but there are few elements. But if you're so specific, you want to do computers related job, that too in DRDO, I'm sure there's probably room. But don't be disappointed in case if you get into kind of just managing and maintaining the local network, kind of admin jobs. That's all they have it. So this is where I would strongly recommend you guys, like you have something in mind, but you aim somewhere else. That's where be cautious. Okay. If you want to just change jobs every 2-3 years, start somewhere and have that experience and keep moving until you get what you want. And as you grow, things would change, or your taste would change. And especially as you get a family and children, expenses growing up, what you more look at is who pays me more, and pretty much simple, because I know people say work satisfaction. I think it's more than work giving a satisfaction. It's the people whom you work with gives more satisfaction. I haven't seen anyone coming home and say, today, excellent, I wrote this program that executed successfully. I very, very rarely I see. But rather they look for a good company who looks after people, or people or managers who are excellent, giving them opportunities, say that to grow and to look after them in the times of need, is what people look and have a satisfaction in. So if I were you, I wouldn't put any boundaries, either companies or geography. I just go around, if I were a bachelor like you, and just explore and see, and finally you land. By the time probably get married and have a children, by then you would know where the opportunities, and you just taste it as well. So another thing is keep talking to the people. Okay, come to the LinkedIn, come to the the few people who are working there. Go to the LinkedIn and just type in DRDO. I'm sure that many scientists would come and pick up a guy who recently joined, or maybe in 2 years, because they are more inclined to answer your questions rather than touching someone a 20 years scientist or someone. Yeah. So that's my suggestion. So any other questions?
So here is one question. So can you explain different ways after clearing GATE exam?
Okay. So different ways, I presume, what are the career paths or paths that would open up after GATE? Let me give this suggestion to you guys. Once GATE finish, I think some universities, they start processing their application even before GATE result come. IISc used to be like that. I think they changed recently. Now, one of the thing, I mean, obviously you're trying for masters, and what people normally look is, as one someone asked me, the specialization. Okay, where do I get my mechanical design specialization? So they look for that. Then they probably look at is which department. Okay, I tell you, if I were you, I would exactly look opposite to that. Or maybe then they look for institute. But if I were you, I would look exactly opposite. If I have a rank, I will find out an institute where the placements are there or where it has a reputation. Let's say IIT or let's say IISc or let's say NIT. I would go for that brand first, okay? Even if I get a department that I don't like, but institute that has a name, I would prefer that because that would come with you for a long time. No one cares what you studied. Whether you did a design or not, you can move on later on. Then inside, though you've done, let's say, mechanical engineering, you may be eligible for the degrees or masters from other departments like a mechatronics or a computers or a, chemical engineering or whatever it is. So if I get a other department, even if I don't like in a best institute, I would rather go there rather than going to a small government university where just because I got my design. Okay. End of the year, you can talk to the people. Okay. I've seen that campuses. I worked in Chennai, close to IIT Madras campus, and even degrees wise, if I don't get an MTech in a good institute, if I get an MS in IIT, I would rather prefer that rather than joining a MTech in a NIT, because these top institutes have some reputation. They have facilities, they have laboratories, and when you go out, the industry recognizes you. And in Australia, I don't think anyone bothers much because after I gained the experience of 10, 15 years or 20 years, that overrides these academic things. But first 5 to 10 years, it always comes with you, like where you studied, where you finished. So I would strongly recommend looking at the institute, then degree, then department, then come to the specialization. So now again, from GATE, I think some of the jobs, government jobs, you're eligible for applying and they give a weightage to the GATE score. Probably you can consider that. I think it's valid for 2 years, the scorecard. That's the only thing I could think of. I'm not sure if recently if things have changed and if anything else you're eligible for. Hope I answered your question. And if anything else, then happy to help you.
Thank you so much, Uncle, for answering all our questions and queries.
Thank you.
Over to
It's my privilege, and I enjoyed talking to you guys. So you have my email ID on LinkedIn, and you can always keep in touch with me.
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you, Uncle, for sparing your time and coming and giving us this insight on education and excelling in studies. Thank you so much, Uncle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle, for all your valuable time you spent for us, and I'm really thanking all you guys like who and all attend this meeting. You have spent your valuable time here, and I hope you will gain some of information, and I hope you will going to start and work out in your life. And I'm really thanking Bob Ross sir to arrange this meeting. In spite of all his online classes, he put all his effort to arrange and help us to gain the knowledge. Thank you, sir. I think it's a time to leave and say goodbye.
Okay, thank you so much. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
nice meeting you all. Keep in touch.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any Karunya students are there? Can you post your register numbers if possible?
Uncle, you're not audible, Uncle.
No, I just. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Bit more louder.
Uncle.
Hello?
Students
Yeah,
are there.
it's
Just to hold up.
Yes, Uncle.
Yeah. Just I asked the people, 31 students are there. If anybody is from Karunya, if you don't mind, can you post your register number here in chat box? To me, you can post it. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, we close. Let's see.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was speaking with my mic off. Yes,
Yeah.
Uncle. We can close, Uncle.
Yes.